Now, I know this might be difficult for some people to grasp, but alcohol use disorder, alcoholism, whatever you're comfortable with, has nothing to do with alcohol itself. It's not about the taste of beer. It's like, oh, I like the taste of beer. No, that's not why you're an alcoholic. Or I drink wine at night, to relax. Or I'd like to have, a bourbon with a cigar once in a while. It's nothing to do with any of that. Okay, someone who's suffering from this disease, and it is a disease, it's a mental health disease, they're suffering from it because it has become their solution to whatever their repressed emotion is. Very difficult for an outsider to understand this who hasn't experienced it. And most people are reactionary to an alcoholic without understanding what's really going on with them. And what's really going on with them is that the alcohol has become a band-aid in their life. It's covering up their anxiety, their stress, their repressed emotions, and a plethora of other things that we're going to get into. Now, you have to understand there's a real commonality of why people drink, why they become alcohol dependent. And if you have to really reconstruct it, you have to deconstruct it and go back to why someone started. In my wife's case, and I've talked about this much, is that she had a hereditary disposition. I mean, she had a grandparent that died from it. She had other family members that suffered from the same malady. Now, there's two, on a chromosomal level, ADH1B and ALDH2 are two genes that can give somebody a hereditary disposition. There's a higher probability that you will become an alcoholic later in life. Now, you mix that with family culture. Drinking is normalized. They all drank wine with dinner, and eventually that went away when they realized it was a big problem with certain family members. But that's where it comes from. If you grow up in an environment where everyone's drinking, if 5 people in your life drink, you're going to be the 6th. Okay, top that off with childhood trauma, and she did have some. It wasn't like incredibly traumatic, but it was enough to set her off and put her down this path in this direction. She was rebellious by nature. That's some of the things that attracted me to her originally. I mean, she didn't take a lot of gruff from people, and she was very outgoing, and that was part of her downfall, actually. Maybe if she'd been a little bit more inhibited normally, it may not have affected her so much. But it's very common. Her story is actually a very relatively common story of why people go down this path of alcohol use disorder. And I talk about this because it's such an important subject. It's important to recognize it oneself if you're going down that path. Recognize that if it is a family culture, if you're immersed in this culture where everybody's drinking, maybe you need to remove yourself from that. Or if you had ancestors that died from it, or certainly had horrible problems with alcoholism, maybe you should refrain from not drinking yourself, because you do have a predisposition, and recognizing that in yourself is really important. And if you have had trauma, find better ways to cope with that trauma and recognize that trauma for what it is. Family members need to do the same thing. If they see a loved one who is drinking on a consistent basis and it's wrecking their relationships or their health or their productivity, it's time to step in before it does get into the later stages. And like any disease, the earlier that you do get help for that person, or have the tough conversations, and they're tough conversations sometimes, because I'll get to this in a minute, but the alcoholic will definitely hold on to this thing called alcohol use disorder, because the alcohol has become the solution to their anxiety and their stress, or whatever emotion that is really bothering them. And really, in the same vein, there are as many reasons why people go down this road of alcohol use disorder as there are people. There's no two that are exactly the same, but there are commonalities. Okay, the biggest one is family culture, of course. But trauma is also a big thing in childhood. The earlier that someone drinks, and they've done studies on this, if someone drinks before the age of 15, 10, 12, 13 years old, there's a much, much higher chance, probability really, that you're going to have a problem later on in life. And these are things that need to be recognized. If someone has accessibility to alcohol at such an early age, well, there's a problem in that. There's a problem going on in that child's environment to begin with. And that's unfortunate. Now, on the note of why alcohol isn't the problem, because it could be replaced with a drug, it could be replaced with gambling, shopping, hoarding. These are all similar emotions that someone has to deal with, and this is how they outwardly manifest through alcohol, drugs, shopping. Too much of anything is replacing the emotion. Understanding that is the basis of how you can move forward and correct this behavior, because it's a behavioral issue. So the real problem, just to sum this all up, is the behavioral issue of drinking alcohol on a consistent basis, which is the stage 2 alcoholic. You want to get them before they get to stage 3, before they become physically, emotionally, psychologically addicted to the actual alcohol itself, because then it's gone beyond repressed emotions. It's gone beyond this Band-Aid. It's permeated into their life and into the life of that person and everybody else that's in that person's life. And by then, sometimes it's too late for so many people. And there's always hope, but if you get it in the earlier stages, like any disease, awareness and education is essential to nip this thing in the bud, and taking action, getting around people who are in recovery, and doubling down on counseling and having an understanding the why you're drinking to begin with. And really the last thing I want to say is the memoir. It's called Amanda, A Cautionary Tale. Now it's available worldwide. I have a link in my bio. Go right to the link tree. You can get it anywhere in the world. It's an important book. It's from the family perspective, and it's important to understand and to bring this conversation out into the open. I hope that makes sense. Again, I have a complete coaching program. Link is in the bio. Set up a breakthrough call. It takes about 45 minutes. We're going to do a deep dive into what's going on with you and your family. The call is free. The course is definitely not. But I'm looking for people who want to change their life and the life of their family forever. And again, thanks so much for listening.